Good evening. Welcome to the International Great Black Read Aloud Day. My name is LD Robinson and I'm your reader for today. And we are here on day 23, which is Sports Day. And we have a selection for you, of course. But before we get started, we want to remind you that you can follow us online at Black Read Aloud on all platforms. And we want to let you know that we are here at the International Great Black Read Aloud Day, giving voice to words written by Black people all around the world. And we are here on a mission to encourage the exploration, purchase, and reading of books written by Black people. And we are delighted to be here with you today. We're going to get right to our reading. Before we do that, we want to show you our cover for today. So, our selection for today here on Sports Day is titled Running While Black, Finding Freedom in a Sport That Wasn't Built for Us. And this is by Alison, Mariella, Desir. And we're going to put it up. Today is Sports Day. Let's get off our thing there, get back to our reader, and there we go. And we are going to be reading a selection from the introduction and then chapter 8, which is titled Reframing. And let's start our read. Introduction of Running While Black, Finding Freedom in a Sport That Wasn't Built for Us. And this isn't a lightning read, so stay with us. All right? Okay. Introduction. It's 6 o'clock p.m., and I'm getting ready for a run. I add electrolytes into my water and shuffle through my drawer. I toss clothes around, searching for an appropriate outfit. It's unseasonably warm, so it might be nice to rock a sports bra and shorts, but I shake my head. I want to be seen as a runner, but I don't want to call extra attention to myself. I settle on a bright, long sleeve shirt with reflective bands, a shirt that screams, I'm running, don't shoot. As I dress, I debate my route. I could head toward the trail, but then I pass the house with the American flag and start wondering if it's safe, and then I'd be annoyed that white nationalists have somehow claimed the flag, as if the rest of us aren't Americans too. Oh, and that street also has a house with an oversized pickup. I tell myself to stop generalizing, but decide it's not worth the risk or the stress. I'll go right down the street that parallels the lake, and once I hit the halfway mileage point, I'll loop back and easy out and back. Yes, good. That's it. The route has a pretty view of the mountains, and the white woman picking up her mail the other day waved at me. I run downstairs, kiss the baby on the forehead, tell my partner I'll be back in an hour, and go. The first miles of a run are always terrible for me. I plod down Lakeview Drive feeling heavy, my body working out the kinks. By this point, I've started my tracking app and shared my location with my partner, a safety ritual. But is it really? The likelihood that a tracking app would protect me from a white vigilante trying to kill me is tenuous at best. Don't go there, I tell myself. Enjoy the run, stick with the routine. The routine works, the routine keeps you safe, ensures Curry will grow up with his mama. I convince myself this is true because I have to. On my right, the peaks appear in the distance, the highest covered in snow. My mind wanders to the conversation my partner and I have been having about summiting the mountain someday, inspired by a team of all black climbers attempting to summit Mount Everest. I drift out of the running lane, a car honks, and I jump back and wave. The man inside screams a response I can't hear, and judging by the Trump won flag on the back of his pickup, it likely wasn't something nice. I live in a small town outside a major city with a population of 35,000. 85% of the people are white, and only 2% are black. I spend too much time negotiating my safety while running. The other day, I ran down the sidewalk, and a white man with a scruffy beard and a blue baseball cap and work boots was coming in the opposite direction. My app was on, telling my partner where I was, which gave me some relief. But my mind kept saying, cross, Allison, cross. So I did. I bolted to the other side of the road, worried the whole time that a sudden move might provoke him. The man didn't even adjust his gaze. It's hard to know whether I'm invisible or hypervisible in these moments. I can't know, so I play it safe. Better to assume bad intentions. This way, I increase the chance that my name won't be added to the list. The ever growing catalog of black people harassed or killed for daring to exist, for taking up space in a white world. I act as though changing my behavior will somehow prevent me from an unprovoked racist attack. It seems both silly and essential. It's all I have. When I go for a run, I'm not just going for a run. I am stepping outside as a black body in a white world. I am Alison Mariella, mother, runner, activist, wife. And I am also a black woman forced to carry the stereotypes that whiteness has assigned to black people. I would prefer to just be me, but my country has not given me this choice. I learned from a very early age that I am never just myself in white spaces. I must be aware of how whiteness sees me. My freedom of movement, our freedom of movement, is very much influenced by our collective memories of the cultural trauma inflicted on us by a white supremacist nation. We carry these memories, those from centuries ago and those from last week, with us. They create a hypervigilance, a hum of what can happen when we are doing ordinary things like running. It is a hum that increases in volume when I read that a black person was killed by a white person, which puts me on high alert for days afterward. Sometimes the worry is too great and I skip a run altogether, safer inside. Other times, the hum is low, and moving through white space is routine, even mundane. But the hum is never shut off. There is no mute button, except sometimes when I run. There are moments on a run when I hear only my breath and football, when life's problems get shaken out and resolved over a 5 miler. In those moments, the world around me ceases to be any particular type of space. It becomes air and trees or buildings and traffic or nothing at all. I am just a body moving through space, propelled by my own muscles and emotions, my own drive and power. My legs at times seem to be the legs of someone else, someone in better shape than I am, faster than I am. And yet, with each stride, I know it's me. I am this runner. I am this powerful. These moments are when I feel most free. But at some point, the world returns. A dog barks. A car speeds by, and I am jolted back to reality and the possibility of some type of harm. I often think of sociologist Elijah Anderson's seminal paper, The White Space, in which he talks about the overwhelmingly white landscape of the United States as a place black people can be disrespected, or worse, and reminded that they, quote, don't belong, end quote. He describes the, quote, criminal stereotype, end quote, which means, quote, virtually every public encounter results in a degree of scrutiny that a normal white person would certainly not need to endure, end quote. The scrutiny, the arrests, the violence black people encounter in a white space exists for all of us at all times. That's just a little life going on. Running is no different. When I started running, I was the only black person in a crowd of white people. The space was infused with white culture. That is, a belief that whiteness is the norm and should be. Running also brought this unique brand of whiteness with its hierarchy of who belongs at the top. White, thin, fast people. The sport's whiteness sent a message about who a runner was, and it wasn't a black woman. And yet I kept hearing how running was democratic and a sport for everybody. Kept getting repeated. The world's most democratic sport. All you need are shoes. Just show up. It was both annoying and funny because it was clear that this message came from white runners in a white sport inside a white country, and they had no idea what it was to be like a black excuse me, and they had no idea what it was like to be a black body in such a climate. Running had made space for us, so I set out to change that. I started a running club in Harlem. At first, my goal was simply to have other black people to run with. But as I continued to run and evolve personally, I realized that by our very existence as black runners, we were disrupting their white narrative, carving out space for ourselves. It became my goal and purpose, my lifelong mission, to welcome more black people to running. I want to make the sport more racially inclusive, to make running a space where we all belong. That's the story I tell in this book. It is the story of a woman seeking a place of belonging and finding she has the power and voice to bring about change, both internally and in the larger world. My story is a running journey, but at its heart, it's a story for anyone who has experienced the harm and powerlessness that comes from not fitting into society's expectations. Anyone who has ever existed in the margins. It is a story of finding and creating your place and space. My journey to finding a sense of belonging began when I started running. Running showed me change was possible. It showed me how transformative movement can be. Simply put, running changes lives. That is where this book begins, where the story of how running, with a story of how running saved me. And now we're going to go to chapter 8 and read part of that. And that chapter is titled Reframing. One night after a run, I was home journaling about different parts of my identity. Journaling wasn't a habit of mine. This was an assignment, part of the 2-year master's program in counseling psychology I'd started. The assignment was for a class called Foundations. Its purpose was to explore the fundamentals of counseling and ourselves. We studied topics like identity, bias, and social constructionism, a theory that views characteristics believed to be immutable, like race, gender, class, ability, and sexuality, as social constructs shaped by culture and history. What poured out of me as I wrote were unresolved feelings of alienation and resentment toward the white kids at my high school. I've been harboring a sense that the white students were somehow better, both because of their wealth and their race. The goal of journaling was to try to reframe the narratives you'd been told. So as I wrote, I questioned the ideas I'd been fed, and a light bulb went off. I had internalized the idea that being white and wealthy was right, somehow better. I had believed I was ugly and unattractive because I had consumed white beauty standards. I had believed wealth made people worthy, that it was a sign of how hard you'd worked, how good and deserving you must be. The narrative I'd been given was false and rooted in white supremacy. My upbringing had taught me that white supremacy existed, but up until that moment, I hadn't really understood how it was directly linked to me. I knew white supremacy was in laws, education, and other institutions, but I hadn't connected the dots to how white supremacy had impacted my feelings about myself and my sense of self worth, that white supremacy existed in me. My class notes: white supremacy, belief that the white race is the superior race, the belief system that drives racism, racial discrimination. Patriarchy, an enforced belief in male dominance and control, is the ideology. Sexism is a system that holds it in place. As I journaled, I saw that all the feelings I'd been fighting, of being unattractive, out of place, worthless, had not simply been my feelings. Rather, the forces of white supremacy and patriarchy were feeding me those messages, and I had swallowed them, turning my own inner thoughts against me. As clinical psychologist Tasha Brown, PhD, notes, quote, in your formative years, if your identity development is formed with this lens of racism, it impacts how you think about yourself and what you think you can do, where you think you can go, and how you navigate the world, end quote. I was not the problem after all. There was nothing wrong with me. The problem was society. The problem was that I am a black woman living in a patriarchal white supremacist country that devalues me. After the class was over, it was running that helped me sort through the pieces that bubbled up. I'd run along the West Side Highway, and as it had when I first started running, movement delivered wisdom. This time, it was in the form of questions. Do I hate white people, or do I hate white supremacy? Is there even a difference? To what extent are individual white people responsible for upholding white supremacy if they, too, are ingesting and internalizing the same messages? When does it become their responsibility to recognize that they are upholding white supremacy and the status quo, and they should change it? How, though, could white people have been complicit in this for this long? Running didn't deliver the answers. And while it often shook out some of my anger, my resentment toward white people kept resurfacing. It was boundless. I resented that I was made to feel like I had to speak on behalf of the entire black race while made to believe I was less than. I resented that white people could go for a run with little regard for the space and place they occupied and a lack of awareness around their race. I resented white women who talked about feminism when what they were really talking about was white feminism. I resented that white people didn't see the entitlement and privilege that comes with being white, and ultimately that the racial work of our nation falls on the shoulders of black people. Some of this resentment came to the surface in a class called Race Lab. It was the kind of class where white people cried and black people tried not to roll their eyes, but everybody left transformed in some way. We did an activity that asked everyone to line up in a semicircle according to skin color, lightest to darkest. Everyone in the class got up and began assembling themselves, except for a dozen or so white folks. They stood there, flummoxed by the whole affair. I don't know where to go, a white woman said. Oh, for buck's sake, I thought, just get on the end. White people are so uncomfortable with race that they pretend not to know color of their own. Excuse me, let me read that again. White people are so uncomfortable with race that they pretend not to know the color of their own skin. So we had a conversation about this. What is it like for each person to arrange themselves according to race? This was where white people's feelings this is where white people's feelings on race surfaced. White people felt bad that black people had to line up as dark. It was ridiculous. I don't feel bad about the complexion of my skin. You feel bad for me because you're projecting your biases about blackness as bad, inferior, and other onto me. Faced with their own biases for the first time, some of the white women began to cry. I could hardly contain myself. This was, of course, the whole point of the exercise. Not the tears, but the awareness. Nothing more had been said other than to line up according to complexion. Everything else, all the feelings and thoughts that came, were what you made of it, or rather what you had been taught and socialized to make of it. Later, we got into a conversation about work and wealth, and the white people in the class insisted that their parents were self-made, that the sole factor in their family's wealth was hard work. My white peers refused to acknowledge that race affected the school they'd gone to, the loan or funding they'd received, the promotion they landed at work. Of course, their parents had worked hard, but their skin color had also given them advantages that we did not and do not have. These two facts coexist. For several months, I grappled with rage and anger at white people. Sometimes when I ran, the anger would leave my body only to have it rise again later. I walked down the street thinking every white person was racist and evil. I wanted nothing to do with white people. I shut myself down to any friendships or even the possibility of friendly banter with anyone who was white. I avoided as much as possible the white runners at Harlem Run. Finally, I went to my professor's office and shared my anger with her. Dr. Riddy Sandil is a woman with a big heart and a clear-eyed view of racial complexity. She answered the questions I'd been asking. You don't hate white people, Alison. You hate whiteness and white supremacy, she said. I felt so relieved. She was right. I'd worried that if I did in fact hate white people, that would mean I was prejudiced and a bad person. But Dr. Sandil had solved that for me. I wasn't prejudiced against white people. I was being harmed by white supremacy. White people's ignorance and privilege angered me. That didn't change. But what I hated was white supremacy and the way that it had made me think, the way it had made other people think. I hated the racism it spawned, the racist system it had built. I hated that white supremacy and racism were a way of life in the United States. Once I saw the underlying problem of society's white supremacist culture, more running and thinking showed me that I was still fighting the white supremacy in myself. My own ideas on perfectionism stem from the internalized belief that perfect was possible and something we should all strive for. The need to show and prove myself through my education was a product of believing my worth rested in my degrees, my productivity, as well as the notion that as a black woman, I had to work twice as good as my peers to be accepted. Through the subtle yet powerful ways whiteness operates, sanitizing civil rights leaders, whitewashing history, labeling us as dangerous and criminal, I realized that I, too, had prejudices against Black people. I bought into stereotypes about African Americans, accepted the party line of hard work as a ticket to the American dream. I'd measured my looks, my success, and my worth off a racist system that refused to value me. On more than one occasion, I had looked at homeless people on the street and thought they must have done something to deserve it. These were ugly truths to confront. I'd worked for years, I still am today, to root out the white supremacy in me. But simply being aware of it was liberating. It allowed me to recognize when I was seeing myself in relation to whiteness and create space for me to see myself for who I was, a smart, beautiful, powerful, and complex Black woman. This has been our selection today from Running While Black, Finding Freedom in a Sport That Wasn't Built for Us. This is at the beginning of of the book. There is a historical timeline of titled Freedom of Movement. And I have to tell you, this is really something that is liberating. The fact that running and movement and freedom of movement is something that we're taught to believe is possible. But in reality, it is hard lived out. I mean, there are still places that you don't want to be. You know, places are called sundown cities and sundown towns. There are still places like that today. You don't want to be necessarily going through certain places at certain times because you know how people think, you know how people act, you know what happened there. You know, some places are the sites of lynchings. They are the site of the sites of crimes being committed against persons of color, particularly Black people in the country. And so this timeline, this concept of freedom of movement, I think is so enlightening and enriching and historically I don't want to say confirming, but historically validating, I should say. Same word, but a little slight difference. But there is this historical validation of the things that we know to be true as Black people. I used to be a runner. I took up running. I don't run as much now. If you saw me, you're like, hey, you don't run. But I used to run for quite a number of years. I took up running in college. I just wanted to exercise. I liked being outdoors, but I wasn't particularly about indoor sports or things like that. And so I took up jogging and running. And I have to tell you, the looks that I would get when I was running through certain neighborhoods, they were enlightening. I didn't necessarily let them bother me because I thought, well, I pay taxes too. My parents pay taxes. I can, I can run. I buy things in this city. So my money goes to help keep the lights on the streets and all that stuff as well. But as I ran in different parts of the country, I saw different things, but I saw some of the same similar things, and some of that really was running while black. There's this, there are the looks that you get, like why are you running through? Why are you running here? Why are you running through this neighborhood? But you have to. There is something, as the author says, that there is something so liberating when you run. Your mind sort of clears. You get in touch with you get in touch with your own thoughts, and it's just you and the pavement, the pavement, the wind and the air, and everything else that you encounter along the way somehow sometimes just battens itself down. And so that's my story about running while black. That's part of my story about running while black. And so we want to encourage you. We're going to put up our book again. We're going to put up our cover again so that you can see it. Our selection for today, for day 23, Sports Day, our selection is Running While Black by Alison, Mariella, Desir, and it is finding freedom in a sport that wasn't built for us. And so we will be back tomorrow with another installation of the International Great Black Read Aloud Day. Tomorrow is Fantasy Day, and so we have a special interview with an author for fantasy. And so we will see you tomorrow for day 24 of the International Great Black Read Aloud Day. It has been my pleasure to read with you tonight, where we are giving voice to words written by Black people all around the world, and to encourage you to explore, purchase, and read books by Black people. Don't explore and purchase, but never read them. Even when they're different, there are different opinions about things that things that I read even when we're doing our read alouds, but I think they are still, they are still worthy to be provided, because we read a lot of books and come up with, different things and different selections, and we make our selections very deliberately. And so we hope that you are encouraged to go to your bookstores, go to your libraries, request that they order books and put them on the shelves for you, so that you can continue to support Black authors. We love you, and we'll see you tomorrow on day 24 at the International Great Black Read Aloud Day. Have a good night.